Well, good morning on a very chilly morning, Ken. It was how's Lake Country doing this morning? Is it under the icy cap?
I don't think it was too bad, but it was chilly a little. It's still like we're getting spoiled. I mean,
I know, and it's going to warm up. That's what the thing is. You talk about it getting cold a little bit here, and then it's going to warm up. But I got to do a walkabout today, and look at. Thank goodness there's no snow, because I was worried about that when I scheduled it for today.
Yeah.
Anyway. No snow.
Well, if, ideally, whenever we do consulting work, it's always nice to be able to see the ground.
It is good to see the ground, Ken. Got to know what's under there, under the snow, to be able to. Yeah. And actually, and this is a good tip. This isn't the tip of the week, by the way, but it is a tip for homeowners and that. They're out buying homes. If they're gardeners, take a shovel when you look at the house. Go take a shovel with you and just have a look at what kind of soil there is there, because you might have to rebuy the lot if you're a gardener. You might have to pay twice for the lot.
Yeah, or else you have beat up old house, but wow, the soil's so good.
Oh, yeah.
You pay top dollar for it.
I know. Well, there you go. We should move on here. Get the tips and plants of the week going here.
You betcha.
Well, my tip of the week is make sure that all your vulnerable plants have proper protection with this cool weather coming on. There are a few vulnerable plants out there that you might want to check on, and, we got some cool weather here. Plant of the week is the Crassula rupestris, actually. Buttons on a string, or the baby necklace. I just had so much fun with mine this year.
Yep.
Full bloom, doing its thing, and it's going to do it again next year. The problem is, not the problem, but the interesting thing about it is, most flowers have a sweet smell to them, right? This one's not obnoxious, but it's not what you'd normally think of. You almost go into the greenhouse when it's blooming, and you almost think,
something's burning.
Yeah, a little bit on the burning side. Yeah, it's not that sweet, fragrant smell of a flower.
Well, there you go. Yeah. The flower's got to smell what the pollinator likes. It's got to smell like something it likes. So whatever it is, maybe it's a beetle that pollinates that one.
It could be.
There you go.
Like John, Paul, George, or Ringo?
Could be.
One of those guys.
All right. Well, I also have a tip and a plant this week, and my tip of the week is participate in some online training. Participate in the webinars. GrowerCoach.com. We have all kinds of webinars coming down the pipes. Today, we're doing our basic pruning seminar, and it's all online. You can just take it right in your own living room. Just go to GrowerCoach.com and click on the Learning tab, and under webinars, you can sign up for today's class if you like. It starts at 1 o'clock, and we're just coming into prime pruning season here in February, so good to get that under your belt. All right, my plant of the week is the Norfolk Island pine. We've been talking a little bit about the Araucaria group and the monkey puzzle trees and those, but the Norfolk Island pine is a common house plant, and it actually grows quite quickly if anybody's ever had one, and they really love moisture. Like they seem to live in these conditions that are kind of a little bit boggy and a little bit moist, and so these are plants that respond quite well to that, and they love the interior temperatures, and they like to be in bright light if possible. And then once they go past the window, you give them to somebody who has a higher ceiling and higher windows. There you go. That's my tips and plants for this week. Remember to check GrowerCoach.com.
Cathedral, anyone?
Yeah.
Put it in a cathedral?
I don't know how many of those I've had over the years. I remember I had one for a Christmas tree one year just because I didn't have the time because I was too busy selling Christmas trees, right?
Right.
So I just had a Norfolk Island pine, so I put some lights on it, and it was awesome. And next thing you know, it was growing, gone,
Yeah, well, I guess you might be able to prune them and have them branch out, but I don't think so. No, I think they're like it's like trying to make a ponderosa pine branch out.
They have a hard time dealing with that. I remember reading about that. I think it was actually during that time. I think that would have been in the 80s, there, late 80s, and I'm sure I was working with you, Don, and I was looking at that tree, and I thought, well, maybe I wonder if I can just pinch the top out, and then stop it. So I did a little research, and it said not to do that with those Norfolks, because it says there's something to do with the way that they always want to maintain one central leader, ideally, but, I mean, how big are they going to get, really, in a house, right? Up here
and if they got a dual leader, they might have a poor attachment there and might be vulnerable. I don't know.
Who knows?
So are you going to have a spider webinar as well?
Ooh, that's a good idea. There you go.
Spider webinar.
I do talk about that in my beneficial insect class, for sure.
You could call it a spider webinar.
You bet.
Yeah. 250-862-2525 if you want to join Ken and I this morning. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. Just have a look outside the window, Ken.
Gorgeous.
There's blue sky coming over the mountains from West Bank.
Yeah.
From the west side.
You bet.
Blue skies and the shadows coming down the mountain there. It's very, very cool. Like people in the homes there on that hillside would be, they might even be listening to the radio right now. The hillside on the west side of the lake.
Be just a few more minutes and they'll be in the sun.
We can tell them that.
Yep.
We can be the weather forecasters for the west side right here. Just look at that. That shadow is coming down. You will see light within, I'm going to say, an hour.
Yeah.
Within an hour, it's going to be bright. So there you go.
The forecasters say there's going to be widespread daylight throughout the day.
Widespread daylight.
Followed by widespread darkness.
You know what I didn't?
In the evening.
Didn't bring my phone.
You didn't bring it last week either.
No, I brought it last week, but there have been the odd week that I didn't, but I brought it last week. But
phones are overrated.
Yeah, they are overrated. So what I'm going to do is go right into, so I can communicate here, I'm going to go into Facebook and the Facebook Messenger, and I'll find here under Facebook Messenger, I will find nothing. Oh, no, I do.
There you go.
It's there. It's there. We can see it.
The world of technology. What would we do without it?
And it's Dear Amber. This is who I'm looking for. I'm going to look. Now you can phone in. Now you can call in, and I'll get the message because I've got Amber all lined up here to tell me
how we do it. How did we do it in the old days? They used to just knock on the glass and say, "There's somebody on the phone."
I think they'd whisper in my ear or your ear or something like that. Back in the CKOV days, we would do we'd press the buttons.
Well, I just remember when we first started here that they used to walk in with a piece of paper with the callers' names on it and hand it to you.
That's right.
Remember that?
That's right.
Yeah, that was a while. When was that? That was in probably 99.
1999, I believe, is when we first started here at the station.
Yep.
And at that point, I was still bringing in paper. I didn't bring my laptop in.
Yep. It was a paper world back then.
It was a paper world, paper. Yeah.
Now there's more paper than ever. Yeah. Thank God we've eliminated.
Did you see that story, Value Village?
Mm-hmm.
They found some huge chunk of cash, like $50,000 or something
like that. Yeah.
In cash in a garment of some sort that was turned into Value Village. And they were able to trace it back and find out whose it was, and it was an elderly person that had been moved into a home, and they
had that
this
money
cash,
stashed away,
and the family just started. So if you're a family and you're putting somebody in the home, just make sure you go through things.
Check the pockets.
Check your pockets. Don't be.
You never know what's in there.
Man, that's the story.
I think I have actually over the years, pulled out an old jacket or something out of a closet and found a $20 bill in there and just like, woohoo!
I know. It's right on.
Good to go.
I remember Gord Parker and I, my old friend Gord Parker and I, were on my front lawn in my mom and dad's house on the front lawn on 865 Glenwood.
Yep.
We were just sitting there on the lawn, and all of a sudden we found right there where we were sitting 4 quarters.
Ooh.
We went to the model store, bought a model, bought paint, bought a whole pot with 4 quarters. We thought we were rich.
Yeah.
Well, we were. Yeah. I mean, 4 quarters. That was $1.
Yeah.
$1.
It's amazing when you do find money like that. I remember when I was a kid, I think it was about maybe 10 or 12. I found a $10 bill. And in those days, $10 was a lot. I'm talking we're talking chocolate bars and chewies.
Take your friends to the movies.
Swizzle sticks and all those fun candy things. It was like I never had to. Never had $10 all at once my whole life.
Yeah, it's like a dime now. Yeah. Look let's get into gardening here, Ken. My genus of the week.
Oh yeah.
And my conversation with Dan a couple nights ago when he talked to me about what he was going to be his botanist of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And when he told me who it was and that, I said, well, I do a genus of the week. He said, oh, what is it? I said, well, Pinus. And he said, "Oh, great. Well, we can talk about that too." So I said, "Well, I'll do my genus of the week before Dan comes on at quarter to 9, right?"
Yeah.
So my genus this week is Pinus.
Mm-hmm.
Pinus. And it says here in Wikipedia, a pine is any conifer in the genus Pinus of the family Pinaceae. Pinus is the sole genus in the subfamily Pinoideae. Mm-hmm. The plant list compiled by the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew and Missouri Botanic Gardens accepts 126 species names of pines are current, together with 35 unresolved species and many more synonyms. Pine may also refer to the lumber derived from the pine trees. Pine is one of the more extensively used types of wood used as lumber. So that's pine. That's my genus. But,
Yeah.
Pinus,
there's a lot of good pines.
Yeah. Pinus mugu, Pinus aristata, Pinus ponderosa, Pinus...
Fluxus?
Yes. And what's the limber pine? Vanderwolf? Is that a limber pine?
I don't know. There's Pinus contorta.
Yes.
That's a lodgepole.
That's your lodgepole, yeah.
Yep.
That's fascinating, isn't it? Well, that's a pine. But the interesting thing is so many people that are, just regular people, good people, they're not bad people, but they say, "I got this pine tree. I've got a pine tree that's giving me trouble." And of course, you and I, the moment somebody says pine tree, what do we think of? We don't think of a spruce. We don't think of a hemlock.
Pines have long needles typically, but if you want to get right down to it, the Pinaceae are the big group of pines altogether that includes any tree that has a needle. And that includes spruces and firs.
Yeah.
So they're all in that same
Pinaceae,
group, but not technically a pine.
They're not a pine. But anyway, I got this pine tree, and I said, "Oh, yeah." So my mind immediately goes to pine.
Yeah.
And they start talking about it. I said, "Are you sure you're talking about a pine tree?" "Well, yeah, it's green, and it's evergreen. It's a pine tree,
Yeah, it's nice to have a picture, That's where, we answer a lot of plant questions each day, and, and it seems like it's every day. And people send us pictures of plants, and it's super helpful because as soon as we see that, we know exactly what it is. And you find a lot of the issues and problems with plants are actually species specific. So that means that, it's Pinus strobus is prone to these particular issues. And so, there you go. It really helps you narrow down when you're trying to decipher, which type of a problem there is with a specific plant. So seeing the picture is just the way to go because,
exactly,
it helps us because we know the variety or the
and nowadays our plant pathology and plant taxonomy searches usually don't involve books.
Yeah,
I mean, I've got a rack of plant books, plant books that are worn out, from years of flipping through them.
Yeah,
and that wearing out happened in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yeah,
maybe into the 90s a bit. But once you get into the 2000s, those books became a little less used.
Yeah.
I still keep them.
But what's interesting is that when, I'm constantly reading, I have to be constantly reading, but the looking up say geraniums, for example, and the perennial geraniums, the true geraniums, and they would be all there's so many of them. There's thousands. It seems like there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them. I had a book just on geraniums. So there was a few that were my favorites, and I thought, well, I want to get have a look at that or show it to somebody. So I go online, and no, you can't find it online because it's not there, but it's in the book because it's got all of them in there.
Now you got to figure out what's online and what's not, and what's in the book. Yeah.
Well, you find out in a hurry whenever you pick the right one or the wrong one.
We're a little short. We're a little slow in taking a break here, and I've just been told that we have to take a break or we're fired.
You betcha.
But I'll tell you, what I'd like to do is invite your calls, 250-862-2525. If you want to join the gardening conversation this morning on a chilly Saturday in January 2021, give us a call. We'll be back with more AM 1150 Gardening. We are back with you, Ken and Dawn, the Flower Pot Men. Dawn and Ken, the Flower Pot Men, are here to help you with your gardening issues. No, you're not. I know you're not out gardening right now. I know that. Well, you might be. Our daughter's dog, our granddaughter's dog,
is a gardener.
Is a gardener. Her name's Lily.
Oh, yeah.
Lily.
Nice name.
And
Beautiful
Lily
name.
loves carrots.
Oh.
But Lily is one of these dogs that's kind of shy. She doesn't like to get heck.
Oh.
Like I can give Tika heck and just give her, she's 15 years old now, and I can just lay it on her.
She knows that.
It just brushes off like water off a duck's back. No problemo. But you give Lily heck, and that
she never forgets it.
She puts her head down and mopes and I just got heck. But she's addicted to digging my carrots.
Yeah,
she doesn't just dig them; she eats them. She digs my carrots and eats them. Doesn't even wash them. She just eats them.
Part
out
pig
of the ground,
or something.
Right out of the ground.
Yeah, she's got some porcine blood or something in her.
Yep,
she's a digger.
We should get her looking for what are those mushrooms?
Oh, the truffles.
Truffles. Yeah.
Now you're talking. Hey, that's not a bad idea. Turn her onto that.
Mm-hmm.
Be a money maker. You'd be rich.
So Lily, this is fine now. My last crop of carrots is out there, and she's digging away, of course, and we can forgive her for that.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't want to get her used to digging in the garden because we've got garlic coming up.
You ever do parsnips? No.
We don't they're so cheap to buy, Ken, parsnips, and we use them in stew, and we
I love them.
What Donna would often do is take parsnips and chop them up into cubes, and chop some potatoes up in cubes, mix 50-50, and throw them on a pan and bake them in the oven.
Yeah.
Very tasty.
I'm hungry.
Just put some spices on them. Very tasty. So you got eat a potato, eat a parsnip.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Very
perfect.
It's nice. It's way better than just straight potatoes.
Oh yeah. You can do that with potatoes and carrots and potatoes and turnips and rutabagas and it's good. It's a good thing.
Rutabagas. 250-862-2525 to get through to Ken and I. It's a beautiful January morning. It isn't as cold as it could be. I mean, we've had at this time of year. I look back in the weather forecast. It can be cold. Like last year, it was 18 below on this date. Around this date, I've got the records that I keep in the greenhouse, and I've got an indoor-outdoor thermometer, a electronic one, and it's fairly accurate. Although it's always warmer than what they say it is. Like on the news, they'll say it's 8 below, and it'll show 5 below.
It's close to a building. A building will affect.
It's on the north side, it's on the north side of the building in the shade. I like to put it in the shade.
That's on the greenhouse?
Sitting on the shed of the greenhouse on the north side of the building.
Toasty warm in there. Bet you that wall's toasty warm.
Well, it's that far out from the wall that the sensor is about.
Extend that out about 18 inches and see if it makes any difference.
I'm going to do that, Ken. You're so smart.
I remember we used to have an aspirated screen. Remember that? Yeah. So that was like a little box. This is for greenhouse growers, but it's a little box and there's a little fan on the top. And what it would do is it would blow the air straight up and it would suck the air in. And it would go past your thermometer. So it would give you this real accurate air temperature, but it would keep the sun off the thermometer. So that way it wouldn't be affected by the sun or whatever. Like in your case, you got it on the north side of the wall. Those aspirated screens really give you a pretty good accurate reading.
And then, of course, we had the government weather station in our backyard at Burnett's there for quite a while.
Yeah, and that was accurate.
And that was accurate. It had it was on a screen.
Yeah, I remember we had to read that for a few years there.
Okay, now Amber, is that Kathy? No. Pam is on line 1. Good morning, Pam. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. I was just looking out at the beautiful beautiful day and then I checked the temperature and went, wow, yep. I guess in January, blue sky days often go with colder temperatures. Mm-hmm. And then it crossed my mind, I was thinking about gardening and what could I do that would enhance my garden. I was thinking about water. We haven't had snow in so long, and I guess we haven't had really sub-zero temperatures until recently. Mm-hmm. But is there any value in watering shrubs during the winter, or is that counterproductive?
Well, it just depends on what shrubs and what we're talking about. I don't think it's an issue. Some things that are under eaves that get no natural water at all, there could be some dryness going on there. I guess it's a matter of just going out and checking.
Yeah, I think if the soil surface is frozen, it's not going to penetrate very well.
It won't matter. Yeah, that's what I wondered if it would even matter, because I was thinking about whether things would become more desiccated for lack of insulation of the snow blanket that isn't there, as the wind blows and that kind of stuff. And maybe it is what it is, and if they didn't go into winter wet, too bad.
Yeah, there's another factor, too, is whether it's deciduous or evergreen. So, and even with that, with the evergreens, they're not really transpiring much through the winter. And so in order to uptake water, they have to transpire. So they're just it's literally impossible for them to uptake water once it's, and with deciduous plants that lose all their leaves, they can't absorb water either. It might say down below the roots are happier if they have a little bit of moisture around them. But once they go dormant, they're dormant. They're not moving much. They're not doing much. So, but the one thing though, as Don was saying, is under these eaves where things can get so dry is that when the temperatures do change and it starts to warm up, that's when you water. You want to make sure, as soon as that soil dry or thaws out a bit, and if the weather's warm and above freezing and all that, and it's beautiful, like we often will get sometimes in February, and into March, and that's when you water.
Right. Okay, one other quick question, Don. I'm looking at the Akuba plant that you gave me, and it's looking a little less perky this morning, and it may be because of the cold. It's got leaves, and it's exposed, and it doesn't really probably like this weather. If this cold is extended, would it like to be covered, or should I just let it bear itself and survive? Because I'm not trying to baby it either. I'm trying to have, be happy, or I guess you'll have to leave.
That's right. I've never covered mine, and some years it has suffered. It's what happens when it suffers is some of the leaves will turn black, or portions of the leaves will turn black, and we've got to go in there and trim those out and whatnot to make it look good again. It's never going to do what they do in Vancouver, but mine is, I don't prune mine other than take a few cuttings once in a while, and mine is still maintaining that 2 to 3 foot in height. It's never got too much bigger than that. When it does, it kind of freezes back a bit. So it's not a reliable Okanagan shrub. It's a fun shrub. It's something that you have for fun. Versus my magnolia, Edith Bogue, is not just a fun shrub. It's a beautiful tree that is evergreen, and people drive by and what's that tree? Why has it got leaves still?
Southern magnolia.
It's a southern magnolia. And same with my laurel. The laurel is perfectly green, and they have not suffered. I've had those in there now for almost 15 years, and they have not suffered.
Yeah. It's one of these things, though, that the rhododendrons do the same, and the Akubas do the same, is that their leaves will drop and point straight down during cold weather. And I'm not sure if that's a response to say, like once a leaf freezes, if the sun shines on the leaf when it's frozen, it could cause some damage to the cells. So maybe they drop their leaves to prevent the sun angle. I don't know. It seems to be either a defense or just a natural habit when it freezes.
My cola cactus does the same thing, Ken. It's just hanging. It's hanging there like, but in the spring it comes back up.
Yeah,
fine.
That's interesting. My Akuba leaves are doing that exact thing right now. Yep. They either were online or they checked their book, but they're doing that. They're doing that pointing downward thing. But they're beautiful and green with their lovely yellow flecks, and they're just so a cool anomaly in my otherwise mostly leafless yard. So
perfect.
I like it. Thanks so much, guys.
You're welcome, Pam. You take care. Okay, bye-bye now.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And now we're back on track. We're going to take a short break and invite your calls, 250-862-2525, to get through to Ken and I. It's a chilly January morning, but we're here nice and cozy in the studio. And we'll be back with more AM 1150. Well, we're back. I just want to tell the people on the west side that we're hoping for light to come their way. The shadow's going up. It's not going down. So sorry about that. It's getting darker over there, actually. When you say
it's coming down,
I think that shadow's going up.
We're just a little impatient. That's all.
No, I think the shadow's going up. But anyway,
the sun changed direction, or actually, the Earth changed direction.
If you want to go on a hike, just leave your house. Some of those folks up on the top of the hill there, just leave your house, climb up the mountain, you'll find some sunshine.
Yeah,
but
it's about 80 feet higher, I think. Something.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, Ken, the greenhouse is doing well. I am very happy with most of what's going on. I'm harvesting my last 3 tomatoes now of my fall crop.
So they've stopped. Are they still flowering and all that, or are they just pretty much done?
Yeah, they've stalled. And so, I'm not going to sit there and, the issue you have with a greenhouse is that you have it a perfect nesting place, a petri dish for, things like whitefly and that sort of thing. Whitefly and aphids are the two things. Spider mite as well, but I haven't got. Spider mite needs more heat and more. They don't manifest themselves at this time of year as much. But anyway, it's the whitefly and the aphids. But I found a great product that really works on them for any of you who have greenhouses and have whitefly aphid issues. Ambush. You can buy Ambush, liquid Ambush at the. I bought mine at Buckerfield's
for whitefly.
Oh man, Ken, and it works like a darn on aphid. I had aphids all over the Mandevilla vines. They were just sticky with aphids. Sprayed them twice with Ambush, and they're clean as a whistle.
That's the thing is when you have plants that grow outside. The other part is that in the daytime it's like 70, 80 degrees, whatever. At night it's down to 10, 18 degrees. So they only multiply for half the day. So you get 50% off. But if you have them indoors and you have even temperature, they get 100% of the day for multiplication, so it doubles their effectiveness. Yeah. That's why they multiply in houses so much faster than outside. But in greenhouses, you can still drop that night temperature and take 50% off your infestation rate.
Yeah. Always the key, of course, with any, whether it's your indoor house plants or your greenhouse plants. If you're moving plants inside and outside, from season to season, you're bound to bring something in, right?
Yep.
And the key thing is to nip it in the bud, to get it early. You can control if you have an aphid infestation, a small, tiny aphid infestation that you can spot just by examining with.
Sometimes it's only one aphid
with your hand, yeah.
And you find them, and you can just go
with your hand lens. You look and you see a cluster or something. Just pinch that leaf off, or squeeze the aphids or whatever. But don't wait until you walk in and the floor is sticky.
Yeah,
that's
and that's the problem is they sneak up on you.
Yeah,
sometimes you don't realize it. I had a scale infestation that did that.
Yes,
on a basil plant. I managed to bring in a basil, and it was doing great. It was doing all right. And then next thing you know, we literally walked over one day and looked, and it was like, oh my God, it's covered in scale. It was too late, right? So then we just picked them all off.
Yeah, it makes the soup tasty.
Oh yeah, and it took us a while, like about a couple of weeks to get them all, because they were so almost invisible. Yeah. And we just scraped them all off and went over the whole plant. We thought, okay, we got them all. Okay, good. And then we walked away for 2-3 days, came back, and they were back. And they were just as many. So we took them all off again, and then we came back about a couple days later, and they were back again.
Well,
and it was
my
pretty amazing. Still going on, by the way.
Yeah, I know. But I'll tell you, this is my philosophy. That plant would be long in the green bin.
Long gone, yeah.
Because my philosophy is this: unless it was a plant that I got from my grandma.
Yeah.
Or if it's a plant that's rare, you can't get one anywhere.
Not like basil.
Or, a
but
basil.
It's a test. Like this is because this is what we've always done is handpick them. But this was the first time we ever let them get to the point sort of accidentally because we didn't even realize they were on the plant. And then all of a sudden we looked and we went, oh my God, like the stems were just covered. So this was an experiment to see if we could actually get control of it. So now we're down to about, I think we've actually eliminated them all. We're still checking it like every couple of days. Vigilant. And we'll see one. Because what happens with a scale, of course, is the adult scale is attached, and they're all females. So the scale is attached there to the stem somewhere, and it eventually it dies, and it's got all the little eggs underneath them. And so that slowly, as those eggs ripen and it lifts one edge of the scale up, and then all the little crawlers come out. Yep. Well, it's fine when you should be able to pick all those, and they should stop like after a week or two. But if you have multiple adult scales and they're hiding, because where we found them was because some of the stems grew horizontally across the surface of the soil and then grew up, and they were on the bottom side of that. And then we found some big ones. We got rid of those, the big mamas, and then that helped. But we're getting down there. I think we'll eventually be done, and then we can throw the thing out. Yeah.
Wilson's
start some new ones.
Wilson's horticultural oil actually does a good job too.
Yeah. Well, especially those little crawlers because they're so tiny you can't really see them.
But I tell you, Ken, I've started to chuck plants out like these tomatoes. Yes, there's some small tomatoes at the top that might come to fruition, might not. I'm not going to sit there and stare at them and let whitefly take over like I have done in the past.
Just get rid of them and start.
I chop the top off. I let the tomatoes that are ripening at the bottom. I keep them. I keep the foliage to a minimum now, and I spray with my ambush. I have no whitefly and no aphids in the greenhouse, which I'm happy about. But I do have some young tomato plants started for a spring crop, and we'll get them going. And, succulents are looking good. Hibiscus, my tropical hibiscus, all the leaves have dropped off it. It's done.
Yep,
but it'll pop. It should come back.
They're deciduous.
And I don't know whether it's that old problem that I had back in the greenhouse, if that's still sort of recurring.
Not in the deciduous part, because they're deciduous even in Florida, right? Yeah. They're not really evergreen.
Because I can see some little buds there. So I mean, it's not, the wood's not dead.
No, they go dormant, just like other plants. But they're sort of that subtropical. That's hibiscus roses sinensis, right? Yeah. And they're kind of in that sort of subtropical range. And when it cools off in November, they start shedding their leaves and shutting her down. Even though they keep blooming down there, even though they have hardly any leaves. But boy, do they get scale insect down there! Everything gets scale. Oh yeah,
the hibiscus?
Everything, every plant. There's so much scale insect. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Well, we're going to take our break. We're expecting a call from Dan Bruce coming up when we come back after the break. And that's what we'll do. We'll take a short break. We'll be back with Dan Bruce when we come back with more AM 1150 Garden Show. Well, I still say that shadow's moving uphill, not downhill, Ken. I across the lake. They're in the dark. We have our friend Dan Bruce on the line. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Ken.
Morning, Dan.
And first, before you get going, I've been doing this genus of the week every week now. Mine this week was Pinus, 126 species in that genus, with lots of varieties, of course. And I just thought I'd put you on the spot and say, do you have a genus of the week?
Well, there's many to choose from, but I think I would choose Theobroma, which is Theobroma cacao, the tree that produces chocolate.
Ooh, coming up for Valentine's Day, that's a good one.
And there's an old saying, 9 out of 10 people like chocolate. 1 out of 10 people is a liar.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, Scottish botanists. How are we doing?
Scottish botanists and plant collectors, Scottish people in the plant business. Walter Hood Fitch was born in Glasgow in 1817. And as a young kid at about 16, he was hired in a calico fabric designing factory. Sir William Hooker, who was director of the Edinburgh the Glasgow Botanic Garden, noticed his talent and made him an offer that a 16-year-old couldn't refuse. So Walter Hood Fitch became probably the world's greatest botanical artist.
Oh, right.
In the days before photography or any other technology, pictures depended on some artist being able to draw. And
like anatomically correct pictures.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. With all detail.
All the detail. And just today, I understand that even with photography and all this special stuff, they still have a place, these anatomical correct painters.
They do. Ask any bird watcher.
Right.
The bird guides are illustrated by paintings, not photographs, because photographs lie.
There you go.
Hard to believe.
Over the years, Walter Fitch produced something slightly in excess of 10,000 drawings.
Wow.
Holy.
And he was attached to the Botanic Garden in Glasgow, and then when Sir William Hooker moved south to London to become the director of Kew Gardens, he took this amazing talent with him. So the Botanical Magazine ran and runs continuously, one of the standard publications, and for so many years, almost every illustration was by Walter Fitch. In the mid to late 19th century, of course, the in genus was the in family was orchids.
Right.
And some of the wealthy people in England, and I mean wealthy, I mean seriously wealthy, like the Duke of Devonshire, would stop at nothing to get specimens of orchids for their greenhouses. And it was the Duke of Devonshire that hired Joseph Paxton to build a greenhouse at Chatsworth specifically for two things, really: orchids and the Victoria water lily that we spoke about last week. Paxton's career we don't want to get into right now, but he ended up being the architect, essentially, of the Crystal Palace.
Right.
But not everybody could afford to grow their own orchids, but a lot more people could afford to buy and admire Walter Fitch's incredible drawings, paintings, illustrations of these plants.
Well, I encourage people to go to the internet and look up Walter Hood Fitch.
Yep.
And you'll see the illustrations immediately, just tons and tons of plant illustrations that are so accurate and so clear. Interesting, because I should show you someday, Dan, my mom's illustration, her botany book that she did in university, and she did a bunch of illustrations of this, and I think you'd be fascinated to see them. Anyway, what a great thing, because this is not per se a botanist, but obviously he knew about plants. He knew lots.
Well, the thing about Walter Fitch is that he had the ability to take a herbarium specimen, which is a absolutely flat, dried, two-dimensional pressed plant.
No.
And he took this thing and looked at it and then recreated it on paper as if it were fresh.
Wow.
And these other guys who went out into the wilds and collected the plant material could do a written description of what they had seen, and they said, well, there's the herbarium specimen, look at it. And everybody looked at this kind of dark brown flat thing on the paper and said, yeah, okay. And then they saw what Walter Fitch had done, not touching the specimen in any way, but simply recreating it on paper. And the people who had collected the thing in the first place had just stood open-mouthed in amazement.
Now, and he, of course, would have been given information on colors and textures and things like that, right?
Yes, that's what he got from the written description of the collector himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating. That's really, really fascinating. And I encourage people, I'm just looking through these pictures on the internet here, Walter Hood Fitch, and these pictures are just fabulous. Lots of orchids, as you say. There's lots of orchids there, but lots of other plants. A lot of rhododendrons. Looks like he's got some tree ferns going on here. He's got just about everything you can imagine. He's got growing lilies, lots of lilies. But yeah, a lot of orchids. And fritillaria is here. And very cool.
Now, I mean, there was, as many of us remember, I mean, there was people in Kelowna who raised, propagated lilies. Mm-hmm. Ray Elders was one. And of course, I tell you, we definitely have my mind. I'm just having a mind failure here because he's such a good friend of mine. I just can't think of his name. Ken, we did a video with him, Dick Bassett.
Yeah, Dick Bassett, yeah.
Oh, man. Sometimes, when I'm talking to Dan Bruce, I get all flustered when I'm talking to Dan Bruce because there's so much knowledge there, and I feel empty-headed. But anyway.
No. The Kelowna Museum has a herbarium which contains specimens of Ray's lilies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a breeder. I mean, he was not only just a collector, but he was a breeder. Yeah, I mean,
he actually bred some new varieties.
Yeah. Very cool. Cool.
Getting back to Fitch, of course, a little bit. Sir William Hooker went on the, for a botanist, a strange place to go, the Antarctic.
Oh, really? Because there's nothing there.
39 to 43. An expedition to the Antarctic, and islands in the Southern Ocean, and the ships involved were the Erebus and the Terror, which of course have huge Canadian connections because the Erebus and the Terror ended up in the Canadian Arctic.
Yes, sunk.
Where Sir John Franklin came to grief.
Came to grief.
So all of these things are sort of interconnected and woven together, and one thing leads to another.
Fascinating. Very fascinating, Dan. And I'm enjoying these little chats we have every Saturday morning on the Scottish Botanist. And Ken is as well. We're nodding our heads all the time.
Oh, for sure, yeah. It's really, it's such a heightened awareness. Over the years we hear these names that float through, but it's so nice to just sort of solidify the, where they came from, what they did, and where they went.
So that's the homework for our listening audience. Get to your computer, look up Walter Hood Fitch, and look at all about him. Dan Bruce has given us a sketch of what he did and what he was about. But I'm telling you, this is where you can dig in and get lots of information.
Yep. And don't forget, he had a nephew, John Nugent Fitch.
Okay. We got about 30 seconds, Dan.
Also was a highly respected botanical artist, but there's not a whole lot of information about John Nugent Fitch. It's Walter, his uncle, that was the big mover and shaker.
The big guy. Dan, thank you again for your input today. It was just a gas. We appreciate it. And you got anything for next week, or it's going to be a big surprise again?
Well, let's keep that again for a surprise,
Okay.
and we'll see what the Fintry estate can come up with.
You betcha. Because this is all happening out there. There's a big display going to be happening when the things open up again this spring. But Dan, we got to go. It's time for the break, and thank you again for calling in.
You're welcome.
Okay, buddy.
Thanks,
Take care.
Dan.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. On that note, we're taking a break. It's 9 o'clock. We're going to have the news and everything. Dan, Ken and I will be back with more AM 1150 Garden. Yes, we're back. Yes, the west side is in the dark. All the people on the side hill there are in the dark. But anyway, that's okay. Don't worry. It's not the world is not coming to an end over there.
The sun will shine.
Sun will shine. It'll come out. But it's fascinating how that works. It's all to do with the clouds, I think. Something to do. Well, I don't know.
It's morning. I don't know.
And it gives us something to talk about.
Yeah.
But, if we really give us something to talk about, is one of you
Listeners.
great people out there.
Yeah.
Phone in and give us a chat. We can change the whole topic here. But I've been planting seeds. Probably a little too early, some of them. But you get the itch. You get that itch, right?
There's some stuff you have to get in. Like
I got all the onions in.
Yeah.
Yeah, onions. And
Anybody
I don't do
doing,
geraniums. I don't do geraniums.
No. But the hot peppers, you got to get those in early. That's what Donnie taught us at. That there wasn't such a thing as being too early.
No,
but because they're slow to get started, and so it takes a couple months. So start now.
Ken, look at that. You plead for a call, and sure enough, it comes in. And Gail is phoning in. Good morning, Gail. Thanks for calling.
Good morning.
Is this Dawn?
This is Dawn and Ken. Yes.
Oh, Dawn and Ken. Okay, good. Ken and Dawn, I was listening to your show last week. And when I turned the radio on, you were just talking to a lady. I just got the last bit of the conversation, and I gathered that she had an orchid and didn't know quite where to put it. And you advised her not to put it in her bedroom regarding some kind of gases that it gives off. And I just wondered if you could inform me about that. We were given a huge orchid for a Christmas gift this year. It's about... The stalks are at least 2.5 feet tall and beautiful flowers all over it and lots of leaves. And I'm just not quite knowing where to put it. I'm
just wondering whether you were listening to our show, because Ken and I are kind of looking at each other going, I don't know.
I wonder if it was Brian.
It might have been Brian's show. But look at, here, we don't think, we both look at each other and say, we don't think there's any gases that the orchid's giving off. Mind you, at night I might give off some gases in my bedroom, but the odd gas here and there. But but we were talking about the gas that causes things to ripen, and in the greenhouse we were talking about that. That's the ethylene gas that comes off of ripening fruit.
Oh, okay.
Like bananas, it would be. But I don't think there's any concern about having that orchid in your bedroom.
Oh, okay. Well, that's when you don't hear the whole conversation, you leave wondering what the heck what's going on.
Exactly.
But anyways, I know it was your show because I often listen to it when I first wake up in the morning.
Well, thank you.
And I just wanted to make sure that this orchid wasn't giving off something that we would maybe not be healthy for us. But
I don't think so, Ken.
No. Orchids give off oxygen, and they also give off some carbon dioxide, both sort of almost, maybe not quite equally, but so that's about it. I know that there were some thoughts years ago about putting flowers in a room with people at the hospital, and I think they've changed that now too.
Okay.
They're allowing a lot more because it's
some of that
such an uplifting thing.
Yeah, it is an uplifting thing, but some of that was the fragrance thing. There's a fragrance
and
free
pollen
and pollen
and stuff.
But I don't think there's a problem with that at all.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to make sure we were safe. Being winter, you don't have the windows open like you normally do. And
right.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Thank you so very much.
Well, Gail, thanks for your contribution today. We appreciate it. Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Bye. And we have our friend Sandy. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, latest on the greenhouse.
Yeah. We're sharing greenhouse tales.
I finished picking all my ripe habaneros a while back and have them in the fridge.
Nice.
So yesterday I made my hot pepper jelly with them.
Oh, great.
That sounds good.
It turned out good. But I've got 2 vases of geranium cuttings, one the scented geranium and one the other guys. And they've got good lot of roots on them. But the bottom stalk, like the vases are quite deep, so the bottom stalk is quite bare for a ways up before it, bushes out at the top, which is growing quite nicely. Should I be cutting the tops off and planting the rooted bit in soil now?
Well, do you have? You'll be keeping some leaves going on those parts?
I've got.
Is there any leaves?
About 2 feet tall.
Oh, okay.
And the leaves start about a foot up.
Right.
Now these are.
So I'm thinking of chopping the tops off.
Yep.
Because they're too tall.
Right.
And planting the bottoms that have the rooted bit.
Yeah, and so you have them out of soil now.
Yeah,
you're thinking of
water.
Yeah, you can do that, and you don't have to worry about cutting them back to what looks like dormant wood, because they will bud out if the root is healthy and everything. You plant them in there, and that's probably a good thing to do. But you could also take those tips. I just did that yesterday in my greenhouse. I just took the tops off some of my geraniums that I really like my apple blossom and things like that. And I took some cuttings and I plunked them into some pots, 3 in a pot, 3 each in a pot, and put them on a hot pad, and they'll root. This is a good time of the year to be doing that if you have a greenhouse.
I still have my yellow flowered geranium.
What?
So it's like a European one. It's not got a big flower at all, but got bright yellow petals on it once in a while. Didn't even flower last year.
Oh, wow. Interesting. How big is your greenhouse, Sandy?
Oh, it's very little.
Like?
It's just a little...
dimensions. Mine is 8 by 12.
No, this is just a little lean-to on the back of the house, so it gets some of the heat from the house.
Oh, perfect. Well, that works. That definitely works. If you can put a greenhouse like Sandy's doing, if you can put a greenhouse on your south side of your building where there's lots of light, and you actually have a window that you can crack open and let some of your house heat go into it in the winter to keep the frost out. That's a real economical way of having a greenhouse and enjoying the benefits of that. And Sandy, you obviously are enjoying your greenhouse. And,
yeah. It's funny because you have to go through the greenhouse to go down into the little cellar where our wood furnace is.
Oh.
So you have to go down a few times a day so you can check things
on
the way through.
Nice. That reminds me of my dad's first greenhouse.
This is old.
Yeah.
This is an old house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah. Well, they had a sawdust burner downstairs, and they'd go downstairs and enter the greenhouse from downstairs right beside the sawdust burner. I just wish I had pictures of that old greenhouse because it was sunk into the ground. This greenhouse
would insulate it really well.
It's a perfect situation. I've got a picture or two of the greenhouse, just barely, and it was sunk half the greenhouse. Like the glass on the greenhouse started about 4 to 6 inches off the ground. I remember Dad telling us not to go too close because we could trip and fall right through the glass into the greenhouse. And you'd walk down these concrete stairs to get into the greenhouse, and it was sunken. And they had a little coal or wood fired boiler system in there with some hot water pipes coming through. And I just, these are memories I have when I was a kid. And
they had to be really good to keep things alive because they couldn't just order them from wherever when they wanted to.
Well, that's true, and also they couldn't just go and turn the dial and have the gas furnace come on. They had to watch it every night.
When it got really, really cold last year, I had to put a heater in there for a few days just to keep it off because it was that ridiculous cold. But most of the time, I don't put any extra heat or light or anything in it, and just the way it is.
Well, let's keep in touch with you on your greenhouse, Sandy. That's great. Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye now. We got, before we take the break, we got Eric joining us. Good morning, Eric.
Morning, Ken, Don. How's it going down there?
We're doing fine.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, you said about something about where's all sunshine? Want to come with the big white? It's beautiful up here.
I'll bet you. It is. This is the kind of day.
Too, so you should know where nice it is.
This is the kind of day that you love that hill. The old big whiteout sometimes.
You're okay, but right now it's my view is beautiful.
Good for you. So you're up on the hill now?
Yeah, I'm still on my side of my condo.
Ah,
nice.
Yeah, and so Ken and I'll be up.
You should open my email. You open it up, you'll see how beautiful it is.
Okay, well, I'm going to open your email, but Eric, Ken and I'll be up there in about 2 hours.
Oh, well, there we go.
Bring in the skis.
I'll save you some sunshine then. How's that?
Well, yeah. Now, do you grow any plants up there? Alpines and things? No, you don't.
Nothing.
Don't do any gardening. I know I had a couple clients years ago.
I do the gardening down there, and I come up here for relaxation, go fishing, that type of stuff. So.
Of course. But I did have some clients years ago that had a condo or a complex up there, and they wanted to know what kind of trees and shrubs to plant around there just to make it nice in the summer. Whereas I would prefer, probably as you do, just a natural environment, just let the nature take over. But so we
stuff and the Stellar Blue Jays, they squawk all the time too. So
no, it's beautiful up there. But there are a few things, Eric, that are suitable to plant up there that we have generally in the nursery. But on the other hand, if you don't have to now, I'm just going to look at your email here. I'm just opening it up. And I'll show it to Ken because Ken would love to see that view as well. And here we are, blue skies. We often kid about it, even though it's one of the best hills in North America. We've often called it, when I was up there skiing quite a bit in the 80s and early 90s, we called it Big Whiteout.
Yeah,
because
I've been there, done that before.
So big whiteout. But there's a picture right now from Eric's condo up there, Ken, that is just fabulous.
Looks like a bit of snow.
And you got lots of snow.
Yeah, but it's -10 up here, so
-10. Well, that's not too bad. That's livable.
Yeah, it's -11 here just not long ago. So
But as long as it's not windy by the gem, that's usually where the wind is just howling on the coming the side winds.
Yes.
Yep.
But other than that, if you go to Black Forest, it's all pretty well sheltered.
Yep. So are you a skier or a snowboarder?
I'm not bored yet, so I ski.
Yeah, there you go. Eric, we're going to have to run. We got a break coming up here, and we always appreciate your call. And what a great picture up at Big White. That's beautiful.
Very nice.
I had to take it. I thought this was for Ken and Dawn.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. Okay, buddy.
We'll talk again.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
We're going to take a break. Invite your calls, 250-862-2525. And as you can tell, the middle of winter, not a lot of gardening going on, but lots of enthusiasm because we're getting excited. We are excited. Right around the corner, spring has sprung. I was walking around the garden yesterday looking at spots that I'm going to keep an eye on, stuff coming up, eh? Oh, yeah. I've got a fritillaria planted for coming. I'm waiting for it this year. Hyacinths that I put in 2 years ago, I'm going to wait for them because they really showed off last year. Got some alliums, got some little anemones, little anemones that come up.
The early ones.
Yeah.
Anemone blanda.
Blanda, yes. Yeah. So, very cool. On that note, we're going to take another short break. Invite your calls, 250-862-2525 to get through to us, and we'll be back with more AM 1150 Garden Show. We are back with you. A beautiful day again. And, don't worry. The west side, you will get some light today at some point. These days that are bright like this, the plants in the greenhouse I can put artificial light in there till the cows come home. But they jump when there's natural light like this. Yeah. This is when the plants go, yeehaw, we're ready to go. And hey, you and I, Ken, are ready to go too. Spring is around the corner. We've got lots going on. Of course, you're still well into business. I'm in business, but backing off a little bit.
We're big into our webinars right now, and today we're doing one of our first pruning sessions. So we do, we used to do them in person. We used to put on the seminars, but now they've turned into webinars because of COVID, and it seems like a lot of people are taking advantage of that, and they can just do it in their own home. It was funny. I was thinking about last year when we were doing seminars, and it just happened. A big snowstorm would hit. just right the day of or the day before we would put on the seminar, and then people couldn't make it, right? Because you'd have they're plowing the roads, and it was really a challenge for people to drive. So now everybody's just jumped on the bandwagon. They just walk over to their computer and grab a nice cup of coffee and sit and watch the webinar online.
Is that a Zoom thing, or is that what?
Yeah, we use Zoom for the time being. It seems to be working pretty well. We enjoy it, and
Well, Ken, very proud of you. That's great work, and you've spread your knowledge around to people. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah. Houseplants next Saturday. That's a big one.
Next Saturday. Yeah, huge. Yeah. People that are having issues with their houseplants, how not to kill your houseplants.
Yeah. Well, all the stuff you need to know. And it's good to know. I mean, it just saves you some money, and there's lots to learn.
When I was doing those houseplant seminars, I would have my 10 reasons houseplants die.
Yeah.
Starting from the least problematic reason to the most reason. And sometimes the least problematic is what people think are the most problematic,
Yeah, I think that the biggest problem is the one that you have.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
The
That's
one you're experiencing right now.
The problem is right up front. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. There's probably 10 that are definitely the most common for sure.
250-862-2525 if you want to get through to Ken and I today. We're having fun. It's a Saturday morning in January that's unusually warm. It's not so warm today, but the month has been warm, and I don't have my phone, so I can't look at the 14-day forecast. But from the last time I looked at it, yesterday or the day before, it looks like it's going to warm up again. It's not going to get down to that deep freeze that we often have. However, we've got the month of February to go, and month of February can be a stinger.
It can be
the old-fashioned stinger.
Yeah, and then we've experienced that before, where winter comes late, it comes in February, and then it sticks right into March, and that's not nice. Yeah. Especially for us gardeners, we want to be out gardening in March. We want to be out there and be able to set up the cold frames and get our cold crops out there, and all the plants that just love to grow when it's cold. To me, that's my favorite thing. And so many plants love to grow when it's cold, so it's a shame when it's all frozen.
I don't know if you were on board with this. It was the mid-'80s, 86, 87, something like that. And we put a flyer out on the 8th of March. I'll never forget it. And we had a record weekend. The sun was shining. It was well above zero. It was like 12 above, and it was the 8th of March, 12 above zero. Everybody was happy, and we had the biggest March flyer sale we ever had, and we got all excited the next year, right? And put the flyer out, cost you $1,500 for advertising, and you got a full staff in and everything, all the overhead.
Yeah.
Nada.
It
snowed 3 feet.
Oh God!
3 feet of snow, and we're trying to get people to garden.
It's a problem with March, It's just you have no idea what it's going to do. Yeah. Like I've said many times, just because we've been in the greenhouse in the growing business for so many years, that you remember those bad ones. You remember the good ones too, because you don't always get a good March. But March can be the year that literally, if you get a good March on a specific year, that makes the whole year. It's like you scoop that time that you probably wouldn't have had. But if you lose it, then you're never really guaranteed to have a good year. You've kind of lost.
Exactly. I often said that.
That's the profit of the year is literally the last 2 weeks of March.
That's the dessert. That's the skim. That's the cream, right?
Yep. And if you miss that, well, then you've just got another mediocre year and go through it. And
if you get an early start in that, and people come in, let's get the lawn going, let's get the fertilizer, and they buy that fertilizer, and then it comes, the lawn greens up anyway, and you think, I don't need that fertilizer. So you don't get to sell a bag of fertilizer. Anyway, I told you, Ken, off air that we found a whole whack of cassette tapes of my father-in-law, Donna's dad, Pete, who was a guitar player, singer, and of course I sang with him a little bit. I didn't sing with him. I played clarinet and stuff back in the 70s when I came back from Bermuda, and that we'd hang out and do some jamming. But I didn't realize just how good he was. But in this whole bunch of cassettes, there was one saying Ernie Burnett telling stories.
Oh.
So
cool.
here I set the cassette going. When it was back in about 1998 1998 when we just, the first spring and summer that we'd moved into this home on Rhonda Crescent.
Right.
And we were having a get together. My brother was there and Dad was there. Mom was there. No, Mom wasn't there. She was already in Cottonwoods. She wasn't with us at that time visiting. And in walks Charlie Faulkner, my good buddy Charlie, and we said, hey, Charlie. Dad, one of the stories that Dad told, and these are precious, one of the stories Dad told was the one that I remember him telling years ago about they'd go up in the hills, up in the McCullough area, and get logs, big logs. I got pictures of these big logs they would cut and bring them down and make firewood, right? And so he, firsthand information, he started talking about the trip, the one trip they went up there, and Dad decided to take a little walk on this side road up quite a steep climb, and he found some really good dead wood to fall, right? So he got up, they always used to look for dead wood because that's the best to burn. You don't want to bring, and it's lighter too when you bring it down on the sleigh. Exactly. So they went up, they took the sleigh up there, they loaded the sleigh up. And, I mean, two guys loading a sleigh. You've seen that picture with 4-foot wide logs that they've rolled.
They only could put 3 on the sleigh, and the sleigh was humongous.
Yeah, ridiculous.
So they were huge.
Yeah.
Huge
so here
logs.
they are coming down the hill. And Dad used to put these chains on the runners of the sleigh, these big chains, so that they would drag and keep the sleigh back, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, the sleigh wasn't going fast enough for Dad, so he decided to take the chains off.
Oh.
Bad move. He said that was so close to catastrophe. The horses couldn't hold the sleigh back, and they started. And there's a big corner coming down that they had to turn on. And fortunately, what happened? One of the triple tree arm broke, and the horses curved off and took the sleigh up the side hill. And the sleigh stopped. But Dad said it could have been death for everyone. Oh, yeah. The logs would have rolled over. They would have been under the logs.
They were standing on the top of the logs.
They were standing on top of the logs, right? So this was pretty serious stuff.
That's really scary.
Like even Dad, the tension in Dad's voice telling us, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, of course, they're up there, and Dad says, okay, well, let's ride the horses down. We'll each take a horse, and we'll ride them down and come back for the logs the next day. And Grandpa said, no way we're leaving these logs up here. We're not leaving the sleigh and the logs up here. So they brought tools. They always had hay wire and stuff. Yep. And they cut themselves a tree and made a new bar that the horses hang on to, They made this thing with hay wire and a tree branch, right? And they brought the thing back. But they were like midnight before they got home. Oh, yeah. Well, Mom and Grandma and everybody else was just worried sick, right? That they were up there. The boys are up there in the hills and they're not coming back. And of course, there's no cell phones back then. But he said that Grandma, my Grandma Burnett, had a phone. The Hamels had a phone. Mm-hmm. The McIvers had a phone on KLO. McIvers and the Hamels and a couple other names he mentioned had phones. So they were phoning them and asking them to let them know if they've seen them, Mm-hmm. Well, of course, nobody'd seen them. They were still up in the bush, but they were coming down, they got down, and about 11:15 or so, everybody started phoning Grandma, saying, look, we see the boys coming by now on the sleigh. Yeah. And, so that's Kelowna in the old days.
Pitch black.
Yeah. There were no street lights, nothing. No. Just black. God. Maybe moonshine. I don't know.
Boy, those guys were tough.
They were tough. And they got home. And so that was a story that I've got now on tape.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's really, really quite cool, Dad telling it.
Very cool.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to take a short break here. It's at the bottom of the hour. We've got another half hour left in the garden show. Please join us and enjoy the chat, because that's what we do here. We just chat about gardening. It's a little freezing out there, so I know you're not out gardening, but, there might be some plans in the back of your mind that you want to talk about, or something that was an issue last year, or something you got going on in the house that you need, or you just want to talk, and that's fine too. 250-862-2525 to get through to us. We'll be back with more AM 1150 Garden Show. We are back. The phone number to get through to us is 250-862-2525. Put it on speed dial if you want. We can do that. Christmas tree chipping, Ken.
Yeah.
The Christmas tree chipping program is in force still till January 31st, which is about a week away.
Next weekend.
Next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a Christmas tree that you don't need anymore, which there's not much point in keeping them. They're dead, folks. I remember somebody phoning me up one day. It was in March or April or May or something, and they'd taken their Christmas tree down and they'd stuck it in a bucket of water. And in April or whenever it was, quite late in the spring, they phoned me up and says, "My tree is putting on some new growth. Is it going to root in this water?" No, not likely.
Nope.
Not likely. It's living off its own resources. But no, it's done. They're dead. They're all dead. We're going to tell you where to go if you're out in Rutland. Ben Lee Park off Houghton Road is the place to take it. Now make sure all the dingle balls and things are off them.
Yeah.
No tinsel.
No, try to get everything off them. Yeah.
Take the nails out if you have any nails in them. And behind the Capitol News Center off Lakeem Road, which is out off of Gordon Drive out in the Mission. So if you're a Mission people, dump them off there. The Glenmore landfill, of course, there's a 3-tree limit there. You can bring it in, no charge, 3-tree limit to leave them at the landfill. Not many people have 3 trees, but if you've got your neighbor, go together.
You never know.
West Kelowna, the Residential Waste Disposal Center on Asquith Road. And in Lake Country, the Jack Seaton parking lot at the at 1150 Camp Road. So those are the places you can drop them off. It's the Regional District of Central Okanagan. That's their advertisement in the Capital News. And December 26th to January 31st. So just another week or so of Christmas tree disposal. And what I've done with ours when I've had Christmas trees, I didn't have one this year, but when we do have Christmas trees, we just cut the branches up with my snippers and put them in the green bin, and then take a little saw and cut because you're allowed in the green bin, I think up to 3 inches or something like that. And most Christmas trees aren't much more than that. And I just cut them up, put them in the green bin, and yeah.
Yep.
And the green bin program is done now for this year, but it'll fire up again in March, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
so,
you betcha. It's all doable.
Yeah, 250-862-2525. That was nice talking to Dan this morning,
Yeah.
About Walter Hood Fitch, who was the artist that produced all those beautiful pictures.
Yeah, he said over 10,000.
10,000 pictures. And they were so... I didn't realize... I thought he sat there drawing, the plants sitting there, and I'm drawing it, right? But no, he didn't travel the world looking for plants and finding them in there.
They're mostly from pressed flowers.
He relied on people bringing pressed flowers to him and a description of what they saw in nature. So he's a pretty talented artist to be able to do that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah. And just fabulous drawings.
Yeah, and color and everything. And that was in the early 1800s.
Yep. Yeah. Amazing.
It was amazing. In my shop, I've got numerous old antiques, and of course at my age now, I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to live to 150. Don't know how long I'll live, but I'm on the down slope of life, and so I've got to, start thinking about who wants stuff, because some of this stuff that's so precious to me and has a story, it'll be in the garage sale if I don't decide and figure out who would like this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I have is our old radio from, Dad bought it in the 30s, the late 30s, or maybe he bought it after they got married in 1942. So it might be the early 40s that he bought this radio for the house, right? Well, Joan and I would sit by the hot air register with this radio on the floor, and we'd sit there listening to all sorts of shows. I remember coming home from a hockey game, a Kelowna Packers hockey game, and the house was cold, and so we sat down by the radio and by this hot air vent coming up from the furnace, and you'd hear Dad down there clinkety clink clank clank, getting got it going, and then slowly you'd feel this warm air coming up through the vent, and I remember the smell, sawdust burning, and it was really good. And we'd turn the radio on, and we would listen to Murder at Midnight. We'd listen to Only the Shadow Knows.
Oh, yeah.
And we'd listen to Gunsmoke.
Oh,
and we'd listen to all these radio shows that turned into, many of them turned into TV shows, right?
Right, yeah.
And we'd, Fibber McGee, there was Molly and Fibber McGee, there was all sorts of these old, beautiful radio shows, and the radio took you there. And the reason that I was thinking about that is that these drawings that this Walter Hood Fitch drew took you to that plant.
Yeah.
And this and he was able to produce the plant without seeing the actual plant. And this is what, with listening to those radio shows, it's really got the imagination going.
Allows your mind to draw the picture.
Right. And everybody drew a different picture in their mind, so you didn't all see the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
I love the radio.
So I've got this shell. Now, I don't have the actual radio still.
Oh.
Because, as a 15-year-old, I like to take everything apart. Everything I saw. Oh, let's take that old washing machine apart. Brass and everything. Took it apart. Was never to be running again because I took it all apart. Same with the radio. So we got the shell, and this shell is just it's really nice antique radio shell. And who wants it? And who knows the story behind it? Anyway, so I'm working on that. We've got Debbie joining us. Good morning, Debbie. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Ken and Dawn. How are you?
We're well.
Hey,
nice to hear from you.
Yeah.
Well,
Gardner,
I was out cleaning my truck out the other day, getting my tools out to start sharpening and, get things organized from the craziness of fall cleanup and that time. Everything gets thrown in the truck. And, and lo and behold, I found a couple of bags of tulips and daffodils and alliums. I can't believe I did that.
Oh, there you go.
Got a plan for me, or do you think they're done?
Well, they're not done. But you want to get them into the ground as soon as you can dig.
Yeah.
Now the frost has kind of curtailed that, but it might thaw out a little bit.
Keep them cool, though.
Yeah, what you could do is put them into pots with some potting soil.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. If I can find some soil that's around, that's not potting soil, that's not frozen.
Or get some potting soil, bring it inside, thaw it out, and then and get them.
Good plan.
Yeah,
and bring the bulbs inside so that this heavy weather isn't going to freeze them too much. And then get them into pots.
I brought them into my garage. So it's not heated, but at least I'm sure they went in the pot.
Then put them into pots and then water them and then put them outside against the house or something. Put some mulch or some protection over the top of the pots, and they will grow in the spring and do your thing.
So?
Oh, yeah, we did that all the time. Our leftover bulbs, that's what we did with them.
Oh, okay. Yep. I thought for sure going through these last couple of freezes in my truck might have been.
Yeah,
probably not.
They freeze in the pots out there, but they're not in soil, so I thought, uh-oh.
Yeah, over the years, one time we went out, we placed tulips all over the yard to plant, and my wife, Wendy, she put all the bulbs out where she wanted them planting, and I went along behind and I planted them all, but I missed a few piles. So they sat on the surface of the soil, and I didn't see them or whatever, and we just left them. And then in the springtime, we went out and we saw all these bulbs sitting on the surface, and here they were all rooted in. And we thought, well, that's kind of weird. So, we'll just leave them and see what happens. And, they rooted in, and they grew, and they bloomed. And, those were our best tulips we ever had. And they lasted for years and years and years. And I would say 10 years.
I did that with a pile of irises once, in the fall, and I was, digging them up and separating them and dividing them, and I just got I just got tired of doing it. I left this heap there. I thought, oh well, they spread like crazy. I don't really need to worry about it. What do you know? That pile of irises were blooming the next year.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're tough as nails.
Yeah, that's cool.
Debbie?
Okay, well, that sounds awesome, guys. I'm looking forward to getting back to work and doing some planning and getting a new garden plan for somebody. And
well, Debbie, I appreciate your friendship and your connections and whatnot. And I know that any client that you've been working for that I've met thinks the world of you. So just keep it up. Keep up the good work.
Oh, that's great. Nice to hear.
Okay.
Positive. Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks, okay, Debbie. Take care.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Now, we've got Ariel on line 2, but I'm thinking we should take our break because stay on track. And just for information for you folks that are phoning in, we always love to hear your calls. Here's the deal. Every half hour or every 15 minutes, we usually have to take a break. So time your calls so that we're in that gap. Because, Ariel, we want to hear from you, but we're just going to take a quick break. And after the break, we will talk to you when we come back with more AM 1150 Garden. Well, we are back for the last leg of the garden show, and we always appreciate hearing from Ariel. How are you this morning, Ariel?
I'm still laughing at what you said just before the break, that we as listeners should be timing our calls.
Well, it wasn't aimed at you. It wasn't aimed necessarily at you.
But I thought, who in the world? The reason I phoned you was this. Saturday morning is my day to get up and water all my orchids. I soak them, for 15 minutes, and I do all my little things with them.
Nice.
And, I just want to tell you, today has been a especially enchanting day. And quite often, I just get so wrapped up in your stories. I feel like this little kid, who's having bedtime stories read to me. And I just wanted to tell you that I'm really deeply grateful for that bit of humanity and lightness.
Well, I never had it put that way, but that's pretty cool.
Well,
awesome.
But that's my experience, right? That's my experience, and I wanted to let you guys know.
Well, thank you for that, and awesome. we appreciate your participation because that's what it's all about. And in the wintertime, you can. There's not a lot of gardening going on, so it's keeners like you that keep the thing going.
Well, bless you both.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you for the call.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Yep. That's what it's all about. Keeners.
It's enlightening.
I love keen gardeners. People that have a passion for it. Now, some people have a passion for it, so they want to get right down to the depths and learn all the plant names and everything else. Mm-hmm. Others just, we just love our beauty and get the color going in the garden and just enjoy the ambiance of the garden.
Yeah.
They don't really care about what plants they are as long as they're alive and not sick, and they're just having a good time out there. And the other thing, too, is that every garden has its own personality. Like there's no two gardens are the same. If they're garden, I mean, if they're just this rubber stamp, some of these homes that are built now with just exactly the same but whatever. That's neither here nor there. But gardens, people that have created a garden on their own and whatever. Every garden has its own personality because there's plant choices are all different, and also some people enjoy and looking at a dry riverbed. Some people would rather have an old English style garden with daisies and various other border plants. That other people would rather have lots of conifers and stick with the evergreens and conifers and that sort of thing. But boy, we've sure seen changes over the years, Ken?
Yeah,
in plant choices.
Well, unbelievable. There's so many more things available. But what's also interesting is that some things are disappearing. So things that we used to be able to get, you can't even get them anymore. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that with all different types of plants, from perennials tropical plants and hardy shrubbery and stuff. It's just Well,
some things it's a good thing that they're gone.
Some it's good, and some it's just because of lack of awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people don't know, they don't know the name, so they don't order it. And if they don't order it, well, then nobody grows it because they don't want to get stuck with it because nobody's ordering it, right? So it changes, basically it's the people in the garden centers that drive that variety of plants. The people who run the garden centers. So because they're the ones that order from the wholesale growers, who are the guys who pick the varieties to grow. So, you would think that all the rare and unusual stuff would be the coolest stuff. As a plant person, of course, it is the coolest stuff, but it's unfortunately not big sellers. So, you definitely have to think a little bit, along the way.
Cash cows and bread and butter items is what they go for.
Yeah, that's it. But, and I like the Proven Winner group is fabulous. There's a lot of really good plants there. And
you can keep an eye open, and keep an eye open for Ken's plant of the week, and also on his website is the grower coach and all that. There's some fabulous new things. Another place to go if you're down at the coast is Brian Minter. Brian Minter brings lots of new stuff in from Europe and whatnot. And locally here, Cal at the Greenery brings stuff in that's fresh and new and different. He's always looking for something different. So that's still, that sort of thing is out there. But what I was referring to as well, and we've got about a minute left here. We're going to have to get back to closing the show down today. But look at, do you remember? I don't know if you remember this era, but I'd go out with a client into the nursery, and I'd take a Cornus elegantissima, the variegated dogwood, and I'd put it beside a Prunus sestina, the sand cherry, purple sand cherry, and I say, look at this combination. There's a combination. And I'd sell a sand cherry and a variegated dogwood every time. Please forgive me for that.
Well,
because
just because it's really the Prunus sestinas are not really great plants. They're so buggy and full of pests and all kinds of things. The dogwoods are pretty bulletproof, but they're kind of overplanted. There's a lot of way cooler plants now that actually give you a similar show, way more compact, easier to grow. They flower. Now you can pick a really, really good plant.
Matter of fact, there are some dwarf, smaller varieties of variegated dogwood, I think, out there too.
Yeah, they're not that common really as much, but the Weigela family is the one that's taken over everything. It's just so vast, and the deer don't particularly like them. And,
good thing.
Yeah.
Good information.
Good plant.
Ken, we've got to shut her down. It's time for the tips and the plants of the week. And as soon as I find where the heck is my tip and plant? Hang on. We'll get there. Here we go. My tip of the week this week is make sure all your vulnerable plants have proper protection with this cool weather coming on. It's very important.
Yep.
And my plant of the week is the Crassula rupestris, called the buttons on a string and the baby necklace. It's part of the jade family.
Very nice. My tip is to participate on online training at growercoach.com. We have many classes going, and today we're doing a pruning seminar online, so you can just stay in the comfort of your home and watch that. So growercoach.com and click on the learning tab at the top, and it'll take you there, and you can sign up. 1 o'clock today. And my plant of the week this week is the Norfolk Island Pine, which is one of the common house plants, and boy, do they grow. They grow like crazy, and it's just a cool plant. They do love their water. That's my tips and plants for this week. Remember to check growercoach.com. My
Shigo quote of the week, Dr. Alex Shigo, father of modern arboriculture, says this. This is chemistry, Ken. Carbon dioxide is more soluble in cold water. Take that and think about it. We'll be back next week with more AM 1150 Garden Show.